Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a landmark judgment from India's Supreme Court, one that grappled with a huge question. Where is the line between the power to enforce the law and an individual's right to freedom? This case didn't just ask the question, it answered it, and in doing so, it changed the very rules of arrest for millions.
And the Supreme Court, they did not hold back. Just listen to these words: humiliation, curtailed freedom, scars forever. By using such powerful language, the court was making it crystal clear just how seriously it took the act of arresting someone. This set the stage for a decision that was going to be a big deal.
So, to really get to the heart of the Arunes Kumar case, we first have to look at a specific law, a law that was designed to be a shield for the vulnerable, but which the court found was being used as a weapon.
Okay, so the law we're talking about is Section 498A. It was put on the books for a very good reason, to protect women from harassment over dowry. But the court noticed something really troubling was happening. Disgruntled wives, it found, were often using this law to get their husbands and even the husband's relatives thrown in jail, sometimes immediately after a complaint was filed. The shield had become a weapon.
All right, Section 2. Let's look at arrest by the numbers. The court didn't just say this was a problem. It brought the receipts, backing up its concerns with some pretty shocking data. Take a look at this. In just 1 year, 2012, almost 200,000 people were arrested under this one single law. And what's wild is that this wasn't even a static problem. That number was a jump of nearly 10% from the year before. The scale of this was just massive.
And get this, it wasn't just husbands being arrested. Almost a quarter of all the people taken into custody were women. We're talking about the mothers and sisters of the husbands. The court used a very specific phrase for this. It said they were being liberally included in the arrest net, often without any real evidence against them personally.
But here's the number that really tells the story. Of all those hundreds of thousands of arrests, what percentage do you think actually led to a conviction? Just 15%, the lowest of any major crime. Think about that for a second. The vast majority of these cases were likely to end with everyone being found not guilty, but not before their lives were turned upside down by the trauma of an arrest.
So what on earth was going on? Why this huge cycle of arrest and acquittal? Well, the court dug deeper and diagnosed the problem as something more than just a misused law. It was about a deep-seated institutional attitude.
Despicable. I mean, that's not a word you hear from a Supreme Court every day. The court was calling out a police culture where arresting someone wasn't a last resort, but the automatic first step of an investigation. An arrest first, ask questions later approach.
And this created this huge gap, right? On one hand, the law itself is clear. Arrest is an exceptional power. Just because you can arrest someone doesn't mean you should. But the reality on the ground was completely different. It had become a routine tool, often used without any real thought or justification.
And hey, it wasn't just the police. The court pointed a finger at the judiciary, too. Magistrates are supposed to be the safeguard, right? The check on police power. But the court found they were often just rubber-stamping detention requests in a, and I'm quoting again, routine, casual, and cavalier manner, failing to protect the very liberty they were sworn to uphold.
Okay, so what did the court do about all this? This brings us to the solution. And what's so brilliant about it is that the court didn't have to invent some brand new complicated rule. It just demanded that everyone finally start following a rule that was already there.
The court pointed everyone's attention to Section 41 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Think of it as the instruction manual for the justice system. This rule already said that the power to arrest and the justification for using that power are two completely different things. You need a reason.
So the court essentially forced a pause. It laid out this checklist. Before you slap the cuffs on someone, you, the police officer, have to stop and ask why. Is it truly necessary for one of these specific reasons? And, this is the crucial part, you have to write down your reason.
All right, Section 5. This is where the court takes that principle and turns it into a set of non-negotiable directions. This is the court's new mandate.
These rules, which are now famous as the Arunes Kumar guidelines, are the core of the judgment. No more automatic arrests. Police have to fill out that checklist.
And then the magistrate has to actually read it and agree with the reasoning before authorizing detention. The default option is no longer arrest. It's just a simple written notice to show up in court. It creates a chain of accountability.
And to make sure everyone was paying attention, the court added some real teeth to this. This wasn't a friendly suggestion. Any officer or magistrate who ignores these rules could face departmental action and could even be held in contempt of court. It made people personally responsible. And that brings us to our final section. And honestly, this is the part that makes this judgment so incredibly important for every single citizen, not just those involved in these specific types of cases. And here it is, the real game changer. The court said these new rules, this checklist, this entire system, it doesn't just apply to Section 498A cases. It applies to all criminal cases where the maximum possible sentence is 7 years in prison or less, which, by the way, covers the vast majority of offenses in the country. It was a fundamental rebalancing of power between the state and the individual.
And that leaves us with the big, lingering question. The Supreme Court laid down this incredible blueprint for protecting personal liberty back in 2014, but a blueprint is only as good as its builders. Are these rules actually being followed in every police station, in every courtroom, every single day? That remains the defining challenge for justice in India today.